So, hello everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. Today we have a very interesting topic that I think would interest most of the student listeners today, and that is the topic of HiWi positions, or research assistant positions. In German, HiWi means wissenschaftliche Hilfskraft, which means a scientific support. So that's one-to-one translation, but it really means a research assistant, a student research assistant. And I think this is one of the easiest jobs that people can find in university. They support financially, and they also are a nice thing to have on your CV. They can also open up lots of networking opportunities and much, much more. So as usual, Dr. Faisal, welcome back today. We will have this discussion with Dr. Faisal and Taqwa Khalifa today. So let's dive right in. First of all, how are you guys doing today?
Yeah, doing fine. doing fine.
I'm so glad to finally have heard your laugh.
Yeah, it is connected with the story in the background, but yeah. What we want to do is we want to talk about the HiWi positions. This is the question that I have been asked the most, and this is something that we want to talk about today. And we want to start with understanding what a HiWi position is. So you summed it up quite nicely, that it is scientific assistant or a scientific helping person, right? And with that, what comes to your mind? So what do you know about what a HiWi position is?
Well, I'm currently working as a HiWi at the Institute für Werkstofftechnik, IVT. EVT. And in my case, I am supporting a PhD student. I think most of these positions are like that. This is a very nice thing about the German research system. It's like you have the big supervisor supervising the team, and then you have PhD students underneath, and then some of the very, I don't want to say mundane tasks so that the listeners don't feel that they're going to do boring stuff. They're not. But you really support the PhD students with tasks that, let's say, the PhD students like to free up their minds to stuff that are more strategic planning and organizing and stuff like that. Maybe the difficult experimental setups, stuff that need lots of expertise. But then there are stuff like sample preparations, maybe programming some code, stuff like that they leave better to HiWi students. And I think that's going to be better for even HiWis because they don't have these experience. So on the one hand, they'll acquire a good amount of experience, and on the other hand, they'll get paid good money. Or it's not really good, it depends on the situation, but they're gonna get paid money. But before we dive into that, let's take just a very short tangent and then come back, which is most students think of HiWi, and you have then Werkstudent, and then you have Practicum. And then you say that any student that comes to Germany, they have these maybe 3 things on their radar. Like, what can I do to get money? I can do a practicum. Of course, that's an internship, so it shouldn't really be compared with Werkstudent and HiWi, because Werkstudent and HiWi can be one-to-one, head-to-head. But this is something on the radar, and then you have the Werkstudent, and then you have the HiWi. So let's just compare Werkstudent to HiWi, and maybe why a HiWi is better. I think it's easier to get than a Werkstudent, because it's at university, the vacancies are more. Werkstudent is more in the industry, it takes a more amount of effort and convincing to land a Werkstudentstelle. I think even more experience. So can we just take this very small detour and then come back to HiWi?
Yeah. So first, if I explain my understanding of what a HiWi position is, it is basically there are different projects and different research activities going on in the university, right? And then it comprises of different set of tasks, and it has all sorts of jobs, right, in a whole scientific process. Some are more related to organization, some are more related to new developments and testing, some are more related to collecting a lot of data, some are more related to processing that data and finding out trends, some are more related to processing that information, making into useful informatics or graphs, and then sharing it with the other scientific community or whatever. So this is a whole scientific project in its different sections and portions. and different people at different positions are working in it. So it is not just PhD students, it is also group leaders, it is also postdoctoral researchers, and then PhD students, and also some master students may be working there. And then all of them are somehow being paid or not being paid for whatever they're doing. So they have outcomes in different forms. Some are getting their thesis done, some are getting paid out of it, some are getting their PhDs out of it, some are getting research papers and experience because they want to improve their profile or whatever. And HiWi positions come somewhere there. So HiWi is a general term which we use for someone who is less experienced, relatively less experienced, and is working in a scientific project. So their job is not mostly related to developing new things or inventing new test setups or synthesizing or finding out new trends in the data and then sharing it with the community, but rather in the middle somewhere, right? So they are using the already developed setup, the already developed methodology, and they are repeating it on multiple samples, on multiple by varying multiple variables throughout that, and then collecting a lot of data, and then maybe processing it to convert it into infographics or something. So this is basically the job, right? But if you will look a little bit deeper, there are no boundaries. So if you are comfortable with the region that you're working in, you can of course run into creating new test setups or methodologies, or you can also slowly move into, for example, sharing your results and communicating them with the scientific community. There is no harm in that, right? So there are no hard boundaries on what this person can or cannot do, but generally it starts with these kind of responsibilities and then it grows into other forms, and that is something that we will talk about. And then that is something that we will talk about later. So you very nicely covered most of the advantages. What I see, one of the biggest advantages, what I see students get out is they feel like they will get involved in a purely technical project, right? So they will be able to see what they're studying in the classroom is being applied in the lab, in the real world of scientific community. And then while doing this, they will be able to learn more, and while doing this, they will get paid, right? So this is a nice learning experience, as well as a nice co-curricular activity that they can do, which gives them some money, and which also helps them grow their skills, right?
Co-curricular compared to extracurricular means that it's in line with their studies.
In line with their studies.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is something, for example, they are expected to study for whichever subjects they have already picked. So they are expected to attend the lectures and participate in the activities and exams and whatever. But this will give them an opportunity to, for example, apply all those learnings in a real world or real environment, and for example also learn in return. So something that they can, for example, focus on in the future. So this is something that was of real value, but I could not learn about it in the lecture theater, so maybe I can focus more on it, right? So these are few advantages, and they go quite hand in hand, right? So at the same time, you are hunting down multiple objectives, right? So you are improving your CV, you are improving your actual skills and experience, you are improving your network, and you are getting paid for it, right? So for spending very small amount of time, you're getting a lot out of it, and that is why many of the students want to, for example, go in this direction of obtaining HiWi positions. But then what they focus more on is what are the advantages, so what will I get, and they focus less on, for example, what I am offering, so what the other person will get out of me. So of course, when you are, for example, joining a scientific team, as I mentioned, the boundaries are relatively blurred. Although there are some tasks that are assigned to HiWis, so they know, for example, we are hiring this person, so they are expected to do at least this and this and this. But this is always with this of at least this and this and this. You can always contribute more, and a scientific team will always need more effort and will always need more input to obtain better results or excel in whatever their project is about and whatever they're doing, right? And this is where the requirement sections come in. So you have to understand that to obtain a HiWi position in a scientific group, you have to understand fundamentally how science works, and then connect your skills and experiences with this scientific requirement, and then show them to the group or the community that you want to get involved in, right? So a big win-win always is when the student has a lot of how do I say it? When student has
hands-on experience.
When the student has skills and is also how do I say this?
Well versed in science, like knows how a research paper is written, knows how to extract information quickly, like has this foundation.
So has all these skills, but also is motivated towards, for example, doing the work that he wants to get involved in. So that is the biggest. So these are the biggest combination of two things. And you very nicely mentioned, for example, what skills are required, right? So if you understand how science works, then all the skills, for example, going through literature, understanding the patterns, synthesizing information out of them into real world challenges, and then trying different things to see which things work and which don't, and then being able to adapt and quickly learn are all the small skills that are required for any scientific position, and for example also for HiWi positions.
You mentioned I have lots of follow-up questions, but in order to just this is where I have to be that close. I have lots of follow-up questions to lots of things that you said, but I'll just try to keep them organized. So let's start with the point that you mentioned, CV, so that we can just come back quickly to the point of werkstudent, because I really want to clear that for also myself, because I want to understand that. We mentioned that doing a HiWi is something that's nice, that's also written on your CV. But at the same time, like the classical understanding of a HiWi is this is something that is just purely scientific. You're working in a scientific group, you're doing scientific studies, it's experimental stuff, maybe simulations, whatever, but it's science. And so this is going to make you a good candidate, for example, to do a PhD. So this is a nice CV for a researcher. But when it comes to industry, do they care about HiWi positions as much as they care about werkstudent positions? Because sitting down in an office in the industry is completely different than sitting down in an office at a research institute or a department at the university or whatever. It's a completely different experience. It's different exposure. And maybe the industry, corporate life, would prefer someone who has this first-hand experience sitting in an office in a company and not a lab rat. That amazing, you can do lots of stuff with Python, you can do lots of stuff with science, you can summarize papers pretty quickly, you published like 5 papers, amazing, thank you so much. But then you don't have the same exposure as someone who has like done 2 werkstudent positions, maybe each one for 1 year throughout his master's. What would you say to that?
That's a very good question, right? So I will break it down into, I will break this question down into understanding. For example, when you apply with your CV, your CV is not looked at as a copy paste thing. So this is a block that we can copy and paste in our industry, and this cog will work, for example, all fine and okay, right? They always understand that we are getting a raw person who has the whole bulk but has sharp edges, and we will have to put him through the process and round up the edges and improve the skills that we require, and in the end we will have this person who will be working very effectively in our team, right? You understand that?
Yes. Yeah.
So it does not matter if you're applying in industry, it does not matter if you're applying in academia. What people are generally looking at is if you have all the desired skill sets, generally more or less available there, and then also, for example, clearly see what are the gaps or jumps or hoops you will have to go through to effectively be part of that team, right? Once you understand this, work student or HiWi job boils down to what are the actual skills you learned. So were you able to work in a team? Were you able to follow the instructions? Were you able to communicate your work and results effectively with people around you, right? Were you able to get, for example, most out of whatever you were doing? And are you able to show that the experience that you have from here is applicable for the position or the job that you're applying for, right? Work student, for example, if there is no competition about it, that a student who has done a work student on a production line will be more appropriate for a production job in the future, because they can imagine whatever is happening on the line, and they can apply their knowledge to, for example, that industry or plant, right? But work students are of different varieties, and HiWi positions come in all shapes and sizes, right? And it always boils down to what skills did you actually obtain, and are you able to communicate what you learned in a certain position? Are you able to communicate that what you learned in a certain position is applicable for this job or a position that you're applying for in the future, right? So working in an industry does not close your doors to come in academia, and working in academia does not close your doors to go into the industry, as long as you're able to generally see that the skills that I obtained here are applicable in this direction, in this condition, somehow.
Yeah, I
Makes
also understand, and as
So-
long also as industry sees that too.
Yes. So the thing is that if you're doing a HiWi job, right? If you have a HiWi position, that the title probably in your CV will not change, but the description of what you did while you
will be tailored according to
the position that you're applying for, and that is also true for a work student position, right? If you're not doing that, then that's a miss.
Okay. So regardless of what you do, it's at the end of the day, it boils down to how you sell yourself, how you present yourself.
Yes.
To the Stelle vacancy that you
absolutely
cross.
Absolutely, and HiWi has all the right ingredients and tools that you can use, for example, for any apply for any position, or that can prepare you for any position in the future, right? That is my thinking and my idea, right? So again, if we come down to the requirements as well, so if you think from the perspective of the scientific group, what you want to do is you want to have the adequate technical skills for whatever the project is about. If it is about testing more material, you should be able to operate the machine. If it is processing all the data, then you should, for example, have language skills. If it is about doing metallography, then you should be able to prepare a lot of samples and quickly understand what the microstructure is, what is visible in the microstructure, for example, and things like this, right? So you should have technical skills. Then you should have adequate interpersonal skills. So you should be able to communicate well with the people who are working in the team. So what are your challenges or issues? What do you need? What have you obtained? When are your holidays? When you're sick? Which work is taking more time? Which work is taking less time? Things like this. You should be very good with written and oral communication, and then you should also be, for example, have adequate skills with, for example, planning, to plan your work, because you are
juggling so many balls at the same time.
Yes, and you have to study, you have your exams, then you want to have your holidays, and on this side you have this side job, and you want to plan appropriately so that nothing suffers, right? So generally these are the requirements, and if you feel fit that I have all these requirements and I have these skills that can be used by this research group or by this professor, and you will know about them, for example, when you attend their courses, when you will meet them in different events, conferences, workshops, or things like this, then you will realize, oh, I have these skills that may be of interest, for example, for this person, and it is nice if I can work with them to somehow learn what they're doing more, because I would like to know more about this, as well as it will give me some side money and it will give me more exposure, right? And the biggest thing that it gives you is it lets you into the network, so you go deeper into what is happening on the other side of the table, and you're able to get much more experience than if you would superficially go through the department by just going through the courses and passing all the examinations.
Yes, absolutely. It's a completely different experience. Yes. You can understand how the department works, how the research works. You can understand even like that the instructor that comes to give me to teach the courses, they're not just an instructor. They have lots of other stuff going on. They have research going on. They have teams of researchers. You can understand these dynamics, and I think this is very valuable.
Yes, and I think this is more valuable because you can then position yourself appropriately going forward. So if you want to go into academia, you will understand the lives of the academicians better, and also, for example, if you are there, you will know more about what companies are coming, what their data is, what are the challenges or problems with the tests, what are the new areas that different companies or organizations are focusing on, and all things like this which are not polished yet. So they are still in they're still in working. You will also get connected to the whole network of people who are working on all different kinds of problems or on the same material from all different aspects. Some person is modeling it, someone is manufacturing it, someone is experimenting with it. So you will get to know much more about the overall landscape of what is happening in scientific community when it is not yet polished, and when it does not look like very pretty or nice pictures. How does it come to life later?
How the dish is cooked before it's presented to the guests.
Yes, and this is what I believe very interesting and nice experience, right? And
Agreed.
Once you understand this, so what a HiWi position is, what are its advantages, and what are its requirements, now it is important to understand, for example, now we can try to answer this question of how to get these HiWi positions, right? And what most of the students will realize is that HiWi positions are not very publicly announced.
I agree. Yes.
Right.
Like sometimes here at university it comes in the Rundmail, but not very frequent.
Yeah. So what you will see is that it is a huge university, right? So I don't know how many professors, so more than 30, 40 professors, something.
You know more, I don't know.
I'm not sure, but in this range. So I would expect around 30 professors. And then a lot of postdoctoral researchers and a lot of doctoral
by professors, because many people don't understand this term. It's German. It's you mean Professur inside an institute. This is what you mean. It's not like literally only 30 professors at the whole university.
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
Yeah. So full professors that are basically usually the directors of the institutes. All the different big research areas that are going on, and then every professor has multiple group leaders and postdoctoral researchers under them, and then you can multiply this number by, for example, 4 or 5.
Yes.
And then each postdoctoral student is, for example, connected with multiple PhD students, and then you can multiply this number by 3 or 4 again, and you will see this is the scope or the number of projects or new scientific areas that are being actively explored, at least, for example, if we talk about TU Freiberg.
But the thing is, despite this big number, funding doesn't always exist for all of these groups.
But the money is coming from somewhere, right?
It's coming, but it's not always available. So that's why maybe not always HiWi positions are being announced.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to answer, right?
Okay.
So the idea is that if all of these people are working on something scientific, right? There is money there. There is a bigger goal or objective that they are going in the direction of, and then they are doing a lot of work every day, right? So they are working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and that is quite a lot of work, right? And what you will see is that money is coming from somewhere, but all the projects do not require HiWi positions. For example, a bigger team all the time, right? So in academia, what we do is we break the project down into its components. And what happens is that for some part of the project, only, for example, one postdoctoral researcher or one PhD researcher are working on it, developing a new scientific method, trying different things. And once that thing works, then they want to do that multiple times by varying different parameters to collect a lot of data, right? And then analyze and process it to understand what is the outcome, right? So the project is broken down into different components, and for some parts, a few people are working in it, and for some parts, a lot of people are working in the team. And then again, for the last part, a few less people are working in the team. Do you understand that?
Mm-hmm.
So once you understand this, the idea is that what I want to what I've learned by sitting on the other side of the table is that things do not always go as planned. So they do not go perfectly well. Sometimes the project has hiccups. Sometimes it takes longer to reach the first milestone, and then it takes very short time to reach the second or the third milestone. And sometimes the first, second, and third are very fast and quickly achieved, whereas the fourth milestone is struck, and then that takes a lot of time. And therefore, it is hard to predict exactly when we will require a lot of people to work in the project, and what will they be working on. And also, for example, in the scientific projects, usually what happens is that while we are working on things, we find new, more interesting things that we want to investigate.
Yep, exactly. I wanted to also point this out. Yeah.
And then what happens is that we want to change the job description of people who are working in the project to explore something else while they are working on the primary thing, which is not working somehow, right? So the idea is that you cannot predict this quite accurately from the beginning, and therefore you cannot time when a HiWi position will appear, and you cannot open it well in time. And that is a big issue. But understand that if there are this many projects that we hypothetically talked about in the beginning, if there are this many projects and this many people working in the university, of course money is there, and they will always need help here or there.
So according to that, let's answer this the question, how to get a HiWi position. So it's either that it's going to be announced in the Rundmail, and then you're just gonna immediately hop on it and just tick, type away that I fit this, and send maybe your CV, other supporting documents. This is one way. Another way, according to what you just said, is just cold talks, cold knocking on the door. Just go to the department, send an email, just tell them I'm here.
Yes.
This is what I can offer. And then more often than not, even if they're not at that moment considering a HiWi position, if they see that you're a very good candidate, they might think, oh, this person can do X, Y, and Z, and we actually need this. So why not try to see if we can actually get funding for that person?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden they're going to open a HiWi position just for you because you are a good fit.
Yes. And that is what is happening most of the times, right? So what happens is that everyone, for example, from what I see, that most people are working in different areas and different projects, and what they usually do is they're more self-centered on what I can focus on, what I can work on, right? And they have modified the tasks according to their plans, right? But when they see someone coming on board with the specific adequate skill set, what they usually try is they try to find work for this person that fits their experience and expertise, as well as very nicely overlaps with the overall objectives and goals of the project, so they can get them involved and they can get them work on something that will be beneficial for the project as well as for the overall science. Right?
Yes.
And therefore the idea is, how do you get HiWi positions is by positioning yourself and networking appropriately and communicating it appropriately, right?
Yes.
And then the next question will be, for example, that you touched a little bit, is how do you position yourself appropriately, right? So by throwing out cold emails, but not to everyone, right? So you will always focus on a certain group, focus on certain tasks that will match with the
what you believe that you're good at,
the things that you can offer, right? And the best way, what I see, the best possible way of positioning yourself appropriately is by, for example, going through the lectures, right? And this is something that I see most of the students do not understand, is if you are an A-star student, there are more opportunities than you can handle,
That sounds unconvincing
Yeah.
because being an A-star student means, yeah, you're good at studying, that's very good, but that does not necessarily translate to being good working in the lab
No, it
with
doesn't.
science.
No,
It translates that you're a disciplined person.
Yeah.
It's more of it shows personal traits more than it shows technical
No,
competence.
No, so what I mean is, so what I mentioned being a star student in the context of how to position yourself,
Okay.
right? So it is nothing
To do
so
with
it
grades.
Has, it has nothing to do with how well you will do as a HiWi. It is just giving you a hint of how do you position yourself appropriately, right? So positioning yourself means how you exactly know how you are in the right group of people, that when an opportunity pops up, you're the first person that comes to their mind, and you're the first person they share this opportunity with to see if you will be interested in working in it or not. Of course, once this first step is done, they will want to interview you, they will want to sit with you to see if your actual credentials fit with the profile and if you will actually be able to do this job. But the idea was that if you are actively participating in the lectures, if you are really studying at a master's level, which I believe you have all the fundamentals, you have all the basics, and now you are in a master's program where you want to be an expert in something. So all your previous knowledge and information translates to, for example, how well you are performing in the lectures. Now, if you are performing well, the idea is that whenever the opportunity will come up, the professor or the postdoctoral researcher or the doctoral researcher will have you appear in their minds for...
You mean that specific instructor for that specific course?
Yes.
If they have a research topic,
Yes.
if they have a funding for a HiWi position?
Yes.
But then you have to stand out. So I don't think that it's only enough that you study well and you get good grades. I think having like discussions after every lecture
Yes.
with the professor, like,
Yeah.
by the way, I loved your lecture last time. I read a little bit about it. I opened the textbook in the library, and you know, I stayed there for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
I investigated this topic. I'm really interested. And then, if you do this frequently, you will stand out for sure with the professor. And then, even before the course ends, before your grades are out, maybe the professor will offer you like, hey, by the way, you're really interested. You read a lot. You know how to like navigate
Yes.
your way through the forest and the jungle of science.
Yes.
So why not come and join my team?
So basically, the idea is to position yourself appropriately with the people you are genuinely interested in the work of, right? So you read their work on the side. So you're genuinely fascinated about them, but then you attend their lectures, then you ask them good questions, then you follow up on whatever they're working on, then you offer your skills or experience or expertise for whatever they're struck with. And that is how you organically flow into this position, right? But that is not the only thing, right? So you have to position yourself, and then you have to actively communicate that you are interested in, for example, a HiWi position, or for example, this project that you posted about is opening up. I have this skill and this experience related to this, and can I get involved in it?
Regarding the word experience, I think that a huge majority of this, so we have lots of master students coming now. So this is a huge population. A very small sample, a very, very small sample, will be those who have actually experience in their bachelor's regarding research. Like maybe they published one paper during their bachelor's. That's not common for bachelor students. Maybe they worked on research. But the majority of this population don't have any experience regarding research at all. What would be your advice for this area of the bell curve when they want to apply for HiWi positions? Because their chances are very slim. Because most postings prefer people who have some degree of experience. And so, of course, if you have those who already have experience and published a paper and stuff like that, of course, they will be taken immediately and they will be preferred compared to the others. So maybe you have someone who's very smart, very diligent, very disciplined, someone who can and has potential to publish later on, but he did not or she did not get that chance during the bachelor's, and they want to convince the team. what would your advice be?
Again, the thing is, it is so position yourself appropriately, right? So which means understand what are the requirements of the job or the opening that will come up, and what will you be offering for that, right? If you're not offering anything, there is no point in having you on the scientific team and then just not doing anything, right? But if you want to position yourself appropriately, the first thing is start with the fundamentals and the theoretical background actively, right? So that is why I mentioned actively participating in the lectures is very passive. You don't have to actively do anything. You just have to sit there and actually absorb information and knowledge and read between the lines on what is happening and what they're sharing and what am I learning, and does that match with the skill set that I have in the past, right? Not a lot of experience, but whatever I'm good with and I know will work, right? And then just actively communicate this, that I feel that what I'm studying, I like what I study here. I feel I have this background and this experience. I know I do not have a lot of work experience, but maybe I can be part of your team and I can work on something. What usually happens is that there are different small tests or hoops that the students usually have to go through to show where they actually stand on the scale and how much work needs to be done before they can actually start working on something big, right? So someone will ask you, for example, okay, come to my office, we'll have a meeting about this. I will give you some literature to read, and then I will want you to give me an idea of what this is or what that is, right? And usually they know an answer, they already know answer to what they're asking you. They just want to check what will you come up with, and on the scale, where do you rank, right? Mm-hmm. So they understand if you're above average or if you're low average, and if less work, they will have to put less work into you to get more output, and that is where you start getting on board.
Okay, that's a very good point. I want to go for a very specific case. Mm-hmm. So I, for example, came across an email that was coming from your institute, from IMF, without mentioning any names. The title of the project, I'm not also going to mention that, but it had to do with something that was dealing with very high strength steels. Mm-hmm. And they needed support on the team. I think it had to do with like hot temperature forming. Mm-hmm. Now let's go for this case. Mm-hmm. For this position, they needed the HiWi to support them. Let's assume that you were the person who released this posting. What would you need because it seemed like a very technical position. They needed technical support, and apparently it was dealing with high temperature forming and or high temperature rolling specifically, and then you're dealing with high strength steels. So you need this mix of people knowing the operational and parameters, and then at the same time knowing the science of steel. Let's say for people who are listening right now, what would be the documents that you would like to see on the table? Let's go for a perfect candidate. What would their profile look like and the documents that they would submit? And let's go for a person who would get just above the bar accepted. Let's go for two cases.
Okay, so the best case scenario, what I would love is, for example, someone who will just let's say call me and ask, I have read these details and I have done a little bit of my homework to, for example, know what are high strength steels that you have worked with in the past. This is what is the process of hot rolling, what does it do to the high strength steels. And for example, you also mentioned that you want to get this information out and that information out, and I have worked a little bit on this and I've realized that you will have to do microstructural analysis or this or that, and I have some questions before I check if I have all the required skills or experience or expertise, right? So I want to know specifically which steel you're talking about. I want to know, for example, what kind of rolling. Do you plan to manufacture samples for this only, or you want to test it in this way or that way? Will you be also testing this? Will you be also testing that? Right? So it gives me information that this person fundamentally knows about these things, right? And they can mentally connect all the dots together to understand the whole project, right? So for now, they're just trying to understand what is expected here, right? They have not pushed me their CV. They have not.
That's the point. So the perfect candidate, you're not expecting someone to send a CV and say, hey, I worked before with this and that and that and that and that and voila.
No.
You're not
what-
expecting that.
So what we are expecting
From a
is-
perfect candidate.
Yes, from
Okay.
a perfect candidate, we are expecting that they will understand the problem very nicely, and then they will be self-driven and self-motivated. So what they will do is, instead of coming up with, I don't know this, I don't know that, I don't know this, I don't know that, they will come up with, I have tried this, I have tried that, this worked a little bit better, and what do you think, right? Am I going in the right direction, or should I move in a slightly different direction, and what should I do next? So they will not come up with, I have this problem. They will come up with, I have 3 solutions to this thing that I'm facing. Which one is the most appropriate one, right? And they will know about this from the homework that they will do in the background, right? So we are expecting a candidate that is self-driven, that is able to do their homework, and that are able to work independently for their specified tasks, and then can communicate effectively what they have accomplished and what are the next steps or challenges they have. And that is why I specifically mentioned what are the skill set requirements. And there, for example, you will see that the requirements were, you will have some skills, right, that you will be able to translate to this, but those skills are quite basic, right? So you will have fundamental knowledge about materials and microstructures and the processes and what affects the other thing. But this is also what I firmly believe is, this is something that you can easily learn by reading 2 chapters of a certain book, by watching some YouTube videos, by reading 2 blogs. And those are the skills that you require.
Okay, if that is the profile of the perfect candidate, what would be the profile of someone that you would just accept, you know?
That person will be someone who has the right keywords on their CV and in their email. So they will not ask you for more information. Whatever they would understand from the description, they would try to...
They would just send...
They would try to convince you that I have the adequate profile, and there are my documents. And the bad profile will be someone who will just send a 5 months old CV with no alteration, and just saying, I want to apply for this position, here is my CV, right? I cannot, maybe that person is the best candidate for this job, right? But I will never know that. And therefore, I will not be able to go forward with this person.
So you see that the CV is not enough. You want someone that actually contacts you and says, hi, I'm very interested. You want someone that verbally conveys their interest. This is what you want.
That is what I mentioned. So you have to position yourself appropriately. So you actually should like the work that you want to work on, and then you should communicate this very effectively, that I am really interested in this, by showing that you have done your homework, you exactly know what they expect. And we know that someone will not have, that any student who is doing their masters, who just came out of bachelor's and starting their masters, does not have a lot of experience, but at least we would expect that they will have discipline and self-motivation to actually do their homework before they reach out, or even in their job when they will be doing it, right? And for example, these are the profiles.
I think we can also mention something. It's a very good point that I forgot to mention. Something that could be a little bit encouraging for most people who want to apply is that in Germany, you can't use any instrument or any device, or you can't use any lab until you get an Einweisung first. And this is a very nice thing, because people are not expecting that you know how to do everything.
Yes.
Like, we have microscopes. Maybe you used a microscope in your life, maybe 5 years ago. Now, maybe during your, I don't know, one of the courses in your bachelor's, and then you have to actually use this microscope now. It's completely different. It looks different. Maybe it's completely digital. It's connected to 5 screens at the same time. And then you have to use this to actually get pictures and images and results and stuff. The nice thing is that in Germany, they're going to teach you how to use that. They're going to take the time, maybe 3-4 days, and they're going to sit with you. Maybe your PhD student, who is your supervisor, is going to actually sit with you and teach you how to do that. But what he is expecting from you is that you know the basics, that you know what a microstructure is.
You know the fundamentals of what the microstructure is, and then what you actually want to see in the future, and how do you use this tool to obtain what is expected at the end. So you do not operate the microscope, and whatever picture comes up, you run to your supervisor and say, look, is this picture fine or not?
Do
you understand?
Yes, I understand.
And that is why I always mention, you should have the fundamental knowledge and information, and you can just passively reach there. You do not have to actively do anything for that, right? And for example, also what I want to mention while we are talking about this idea of positioning yourself and communicating appropriately is, in our university there are not just HiWi positions that are related to scientific projects, right? So there are a lot of projects that are popping up all the time. For example, social media support. For example, tutor support. For example, a student coordinator support, right? So these are the positions that come up every quarter of a year, depending on where the money pockets are.
But this is not really a HiWi.
No, that is what I'm.
It's not really wissenschaftlich.
That is what I'm talking about, right? So it does not matter where the money is coming from, right? As long as a student will get paid equivalent to what a HiWi gets, we will offer them multiple positions or opportunities. We will say, okay, you have 8 or I don't know how many working hours per week, maximum of.
I think the maximum. I think it's 20 maximum per week, 80 per month, yes.
Yeah. So
for
80,
students.
So 80 per month and 20 per week. So we have money for 6 months for example, maximum amount of time, or we have money for half of this, for example, 10 hours per week. But the job that this money is for example, only requires 1 or 2 hours per week, right? So you will have 8 hours per week, and what do you want to do in these 8 hours, right? So the idea is that the money will pop up here or there in different areas, in different heads, and we always want to use that to facilitate students in whatever they want to accomplish. And therefore, if you are positioning yourself appropriately, even though they might not have direct funding in their own project or in their own group, they will hire you in some other position. You will still get the money, and you will still be able to work with them
on that project,
on that certain project.
Ooh, that's a very nice point.
But the thing is that it is you who has to understand that you're given this opportunity, right? And you want to move in a certain direction, and you will use this opportunity to move in this certain direction, and rather not just think of, oh, but my project only requires 2 hours per week work, and if I have already done that, it's okay. I'm earning more money. I don't need to work a lot, right? Do you understand that?
Yes.
And this is what
you should appreciate the exception.
Yes, and this is what I want to end with. So what do you do once you get a HiWi position, right? So you might get a HiWi position, for example, in a social media team, or you might get a HiWi position, for example, as a student coordinator, or you might get a HiWi position, for example, in a purely scientific project that is working on specifically microstructural characterization, or that is specifically focusing on measuring microstructural data or plotting different data sets, right?
Or high temperature behavior of materials.
Yeah, so whatever. No? But then you might feel that, okay, I am already doing this, I'm good with this, I have finished my job, but I still have more time, or I can work more on this. This basically HiWi position gives you an opportunity to go deeper into the academic network, and then basically you can move up the ladder in a way that, for example, okay, I have already processed this data, I want to see what comes out of it, and do you have any suggestions on what I can do with this data set, right? Or I have already done my work, do you need help with something else? Do you think I love this, like, closing this topic, but I just want to ask a question. Do you think that your PhD students like this or not? Because so I'm a PhD student, I have my HiWi, so I'm just telling my HiWi, okay, please just do these things, prepare the samples, get them ready, that's it, leave the analysis to me, I don't need anything else, I don't want you to really get involved in anything, you did your 10 hours per week, thank you so much, bye-bye, and I'll see you next week. Do you think that if this person shows interest to the degree that I want to sit down with you and do analysis, and I'm really interested, I'm like this semi-PhD student just like you right now, because I'm very interested, I'm super smart, and maybe I can take your position after you're done. Some people would like that very much, this engagement. Some people maybe would not. Yeah. What do you think? I can give you a very clear answer to this, and that is you have to understand this from the perspective of this PhD student, right? Or anyone you're working with, right? So if they will feel that they will have to spend more hours in teaching you something, then they will spend, if they do this themselves, The optimized function is they will do it themselves and they will not spend
The same time to teach you.
time to teach you and then expect you to perform as good as them, right?
Mhm.
Because then you will take more of your time, you will take more time to experience with the data set, you will take more time to, for example, work on this. And this is what they're mostly afraid of, right? That I will have to spend double the time that I will need to actually do this work on this student, and then I will be dependent on how they work. So I will be dependent on their work ethics. But a function is much more optimized in your favor if you understand that, okay, if you can show that you will have to spend much less of the time on me to teach me this, and then you will get much more output at the end, that person will always be inclined towards teaching you to do something, and
they would do it gladly.
And they would do it gladly, right? Do you understand that?
Yes.
And that is why the analysis part is usually not shared, because they feel like you do not have enough homework, you do not have enough literature review, and when you will see trends, you will not be able to understand if they are good or they are not good, and you will always come back to them to ask if this is good, if this is bad, if this is good, if this. That is how primarily that is
Good
how they
point.
learned
Yes,
this.
yes.
That is how they learned this. They spent a lot of hours, but they have a deadline hanging over their head. They have to show results very quickly. They have a conference to attend, and therefore they will say, if I just spend 2 hours, it will be much easier and much faster. I will not have to copy the data to this person. I will not have to wait for their work and their results, and then in the end realize, oh, I did not tell them this, and therefore the work is not done. They have to repeat everything. Do you understand that?
Yes, good point.
So the idea is, if you want to move up the ladder, you will have to continue with this discipline of I can do my homework. I can generally understand with these images, this is the information or trend that we obtained, and this is the direction that we are going in. Are you going in the similar direction? I can also do this analysis for you. Once you will show them your homework
with as little support from you as possible. I don't want to waste your time.
Yes.
This is what I want to show them.
So if you will be mindful of this, if you will do your homework and will be able to show that you will have to put less effort in me and you will get more output out,
that's the optimum case.
Most of the people will be inclined in teaching you more and then helping you with this process.
And vice versa is bad.
Yes. The only thing is this requires a lot of time and effort and energy. And most of the students who actually have EV positions, because as we talked about earlier, they are juggling a lot of balls at the same time. They're not willing to go extra mile, and therefore it just hangs in the air. But if you like what you work on and you're really interested in going up the ladder, no matter if you want to move into industry later or academia later, if you want to get more experience, you can, for the same amount of time, if you position yourself appropriately, if you do your homework, if you plan things appropriately, you will get more out of your HiWi than it was for.
Amazing. I think this episode was very, very fruitful. I think to the listeners who are mostly students, because this is something that they can literally do tomorrow and apply for jobs, and this is something that they would, of course, love to hear. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and it was insightful as usual with Dr. Faisal and myself. And until next time. And if you have any questions, you can, as always, write emails, drop something in the comments below, reach us. We're here at the university, anywhere, anytime. And we'll see you later.
Yeah.
Until the next one. Thank you, Dr. Faisal.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.